Theodore Park considered all the ways tomorrow could go wrong while he sat on his bedroom floor, knees hugged to his chest, listening to rain trip over the gutters outside. Sixth grade had begun only 3 weeks earlier, yet every morning felt like standing at the edge of a plank. There were locker combinations that slipped from his mind the instant he spun the dial, cafeteria tables that filled before he reached them, and whispers only sometimes about him, but always sharp enough to sting. Tonight's cyclone of worries centered on the oral history project due Friday. Mrs. Valdez had warned no index cards, speak from the heart, which sounded like a recipe for public humiliation. Theo's heart preferred to stay sealed behind ribs and not wobble in front of 30 whisper-ready classmates. When lightning cracked, the bedroom lights fluttered and died. Darkness pressed closer, smelling faintly of the mothballs that lined his grandmother's old trunk near the closet. His mom called from downstairs, "Power's out, I'll find candles, you okay?" "Yeah," Theo answered automatically, though the word rattled inside him like a coin in an empty jar. He turned on his phone's flashlight and, seeking distraction, opened the trunk. It was a rummage sale of family leftovers. Brittle photographs, a single-tap shoe, sheet music from when his father still lived here and practiced sax at dawn. Beneath a frayed sweater lay a stack of pale blue stationery and, perched on top, a paper airplane folded from the same blue sheet. Its wings were crisp, its nose precise. Someone had shaped it with outrageous patience. A curious stripe of silver ink marked one wingtip, spelling only his initials, T.P. Theo pinched the fuselage. The paper felt warm, as though it had been under a lamp instead of buried in a cedar trunk. He tugged a corner to unfold it, intending to see whether directions or doodles hid inside. The plane wouldn't unfold. The creases refused his fingers like welded steel. He aimed the flashlight toward the hallway, calculating how far he could throw. The house was silent, except for his mother striking a match in the kitchen. Maybe, Theo thought, he could at least watch it glide. He stepped into the hall, drew his arm back, and launched the plane. It sailed straight, banking left near a picture frame. A draft from the open stairwell should have knocked it down, but the plane corrected course as if guided by an invisible mast. It reached the far wall, kissed the plaster, and impossibly turned around. Theo's jaw unhinged. The plane drifted back, nose lifting, and stopped in midair before him. Not hovering, waiting. Then it settled onto his open palm. There, across the wings, black ink loops had appeared. Words that hadn't been there minutes earlier now formed a message. Deep breath, Dio. Make the story about Grandpa's Ellis Island coin. Hold it for courage. You'll be great. Yours, T. Dio lowered himself onto the hallway rug. The handwriting wasn't his mother's, nor his father's, nor any cursive from school. Yet the capital T curled exactly like his own when he rushed. More bewildering than the pilotless flight was the signature, yours. Whose yours could it be if not future me, he whispered, half mocking, half hopeful. The plane offered no confirmation, but when he tapped the message, the ink vanished, as though sucked below the fibers, leaving clean blue wings. Destroying evidence of the impossible felt sacrilegious. Still, Theo needed to test it again. He retrieved a gel pen from his desk, wrote on the starboard wing, "What is happening?" Then he threw the plane down the stairwell. It curved in a grand spiral, brushing the chandelier, disappeared toward the first floor, and returned within 3 seconds, rise in its tail like a salmon leaping current. The new message appeared beneath his question. Science Fair 2024. You'll figure it out. Tonight. Trust me. Theo's breath stuttered. He didn't know whether to feel relieved or doomed, but the next morning he slipped his great-grandfather's tarnished Liberty nickel into his pocket, as the mysterious note had commanded. When Mrs. Valdez called him to the front, his pulse set a record. He squeezed the nickel, felt its ridges impress upon his skin, and told how 13-year-old Jong-soo Park had carried that same coin through quarantine at Ellis Island, refusing to trade it for food so he could someday pass it to his children. Theo's voice shook at first, yet steadied while classmates leaned in. When the bell rang, he noticed 2 unbelievable facts. 1, he had finished without forgetting a single line. 2, people were clapping, not whispering. He hurried to the bathroom, heart doing cartwheels, and in the stall he whispered to his backpack, "Thank you." The plane, concealed inside a binder sleeve, felt warm against his knuckles, as though acknowledging gratitude. Over the next month, the paper airplane became Theo's private oracle. Before sleep, he scribbled doubts on the wing, then tossed it across the room. Each dawn, it reclined on his desk with neat instructions. Ask Mr. Romero to explain decimals again, he won't mind. Kick with the laces, not your toe, at soccer tryouts. Offer Jenna the last apricot bar, she's allergic to peanuts. The advice was oddly specific, never more than Theo could manage, and always obliging him to earn success rather than conjure it. He still spent hours practicing penalty kicks behind the garage, and he still rehearsed conversation openers in his head before sitting with new friends. But like a harness on a climbing wall, the plane let him trust that a slip wouldn't end in catastrophe. He tried not to exploit it for frivolous gain. Once, tempted by the looming math test, he asked for tomorrow's answers. The plane returned blank, save for 3 words: "Nice try, rookie." December arrived wearing a scarf of frost. Inside the middle school gym, banners for the winter talent show billowed whenever vent heat kicked on. Theo, now certain the plane would never steer him into embarrassment, signed up to perform a solo sax piece, his father's arrangement of Fly Me to the Moon. Recent phone calls with Dad, who toured cruise lines with a jazz ensemble, had been clipped. Theo missed him like missing a limb. Playing Dad's arrangement felt like stitching them together across miles. Yet, as auditions neared, fear gnawed again. Sax improvisation with a backing track wasn't the same as presenting a coin or kicking a ball. One wrong reed squeak, one lost measure, and the audience would wear the expression he dreaded: secondhand shame. The night before auditions, he wrote, "Are you sure I can do this?" He hesitated, then added, "What if they laugh?" The plane returned with a single sentence: "You can't control their ears, only your breath." 4 words followed, each underlined twice: "Practice in the dark." Practice in the dark? He'd practiced in daylight, lights on, metronome blinking. Still, Theo trusted the oracle. He shut off his bedroom lamp, sat on the bed, and raised the sack. In darkness, every squeak sounded magnified, unforgivable, but he also felt the vibrations through his sternum more vividly than ever. He became acutely aware of breathing deep, measured, pushing air through brass till notes bloomed. At the audition, fluorescent light seemed gentle compared with that black room. He breathed as he had practiced, imagining the airway, a tunnel free of cobwebs, and the music sailed out, confident and round. Mrs. Valdez, one of the judges, tapped her pen in time and later whispered, "Way to soar, Mr. Park." Theo left the gym, grinning so fiercely his cheeks cramped. By February, almost no part of school frightened him. Locker combos flowed, cafeteria tables included him, and even the 8th grade bully, Travis Colby, bypassed Theo after discovering he could volley sarcasm with as much precision as Travis could flick spitballs. But power, Theo discovered, has gravitational pull. One afternoon at recess, he watched Travis corner a new kid, Alex Tranier, the bleachers. Travis snatched Alex's tablet, holding it overhead while the circle of spectators hooted. For the first time since autumn, Theo felt his lungs shrink. He raced to the bathroom, pulled out the plane, and scribbled, "What do I do?" This time, the airplane didn't launch and lay inert. Theo flung it anyway. It thudded against tile and skidded to the drain. No message appeared. A thought, startling in its audacity, pierced him. Maybe future Theo, the version writing advice, refused because some moments were meant for present Theo to shape. He dashed back to the field just as Travis began scrolling through Alex's gallery. Before thinking, Theo shouted, "Delete anything, and it's your face on every locker as King Coward Colby." The insult wasn't poetic, but volume compensated. Heads turned. Travis blinked, thrown off script. "You got a problem, Park?" The pocketed Liberty nickel felt suddenly heavy, like a vote in his favor. Theo stepped forward, heart hammering so loud he feared others could hear. "Problem is you need an audience, and that's pathetic. If you want the tablet so bad, come at me." Theo wasn't sure what he would do if Travis accepted. Yet something in his stance, maybe the trembling he tried to hide, looked like readiness. Made Travis sneer, toss the tablet to Alex, and stalk off muttering. The ring of spectators dispersed, murmuring accolades. Alex whispered, "Thanks, man," as though Theo had rescued more than a device. That evening, when Theo flicked the blue airplane across his room, it executed a showy loop before landing gracefully on his math notebook. New ink blossomed. Proud of you. Some days the world needs your own handwriting. Spring bled into June. Confidence had rewired Theo's posture. Shoulders once curved like parentheses, now squared. The airplane still offered guidance. Study the night before the test, but review again at breakfast. Give Mom the coupon book you made at arts camp when she looks tired. Yet more often, Theo found himself making decisions before consulting it, the way a swimmer eventually trusts muscle memory more than the feel of the lane rope. Then, 2 weeks before school ended, life detonated news no oracle could soften. Dad's shipboard contract had been cut short because of a shadow on an x-ray. Doctors suspected lymphoma. He would fly home for treatment. The plane lay on Theo's pillow that night, blank. He didn't know what to ask. There was no nickel sturdy enough to ward off cancer. He folded at the desk beneath a single bulb, tears landing hot on his hands. Finally, he wrote, "Tell me he'll be okay. Please." He hurled the airplane so forcefully it banged the window pane. It rebounded but dropped lifelessly beyond his reach. Theo crawled under the bed covers, refusing to look at it, certain that silence from the future meant the worst. In dreams, he wandered endless hospital corridors. When dawn clawed through blinds, he found the airplane perched on his chest. Across the wing, in handwriting bolder than usual, appeared, "Doctors handle disease. Your job is music. Play so he remembers why he'll fight to hear you again. Practice in the dark together." Theo stared at the words until they blurred. Music. Fight to hear you again. The instructions were terrible and wonderful at once. He slid out of bed, assembled breakfast on a tray, and carried it to Mom, who had dozed on the couch after late-night calls to insurance. "We're going to the hospital tonight," he said. "Bring Dad the speaker." That evening, in ICU, monitors hummed a mechanical lullaby. Theo unzipped his case and told Dad, voice trembling, "I might squeak." Dad managed to smile, despite the IV vine in his arm. "Jazz is one big squeak you bend into beauty." Deo dimmed the bedside lamp, practicing in the dark, and began "Fly Me to the Moon." The melody floated above respirator rhythms, above fear. Each note felt like stacking smooth stones around a candle so wind couldn't snuff it. Nurses paused to listen. Mom pressed a hand to her heart. When the song ended, Dad whispered, "Keep the engine running, kiddo. I'll be on stage with you soon." In the following weeks, surgery and chemo hammered Dad's body, but the promise of future duets wedged between pain, making space for hope. Theo visited daily, playing set lists grown from their shared notebooks. One July afternoon, Dad, wearing a knit cap over bare skin, held Theo's sax as if assessing its weight. "You know," he murmured, "I was your age when I first played Take the A Train. I wish I could tell my younger self not to sweat the missed notes." He handed back the instrument. If only time worked that way. Theo's eyes drifted to the backpack slumped near the recliner. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Magic felt fragile. Revealing it might burst the spell, but Dad continued, "People say the best advice comes from experience. Trouble is, experience shows up late." Theo swallowed. "What if, just if, you could send advice through time?" Dad chuckled softly. "I'd tell that boy in Queens to tuck his shoulders down and breathe before the solo." Theo retrieved the blue airplane, turning it so light caught the silver initials. He didn't explain. Instead, he whispered, "I think somehow you already did," and he placed it in Dad's palm. Dad's eyebrows lifted, but before he could speak, the intercom called a code, and nurses swept in to reposition a neighbor patient. Dio and his mother stepped into the hallway, giving space. When they returned, the paper airplane rested on the tray table, blank again. Dad slept, features relaxed. 2 days later, scans revealed the tumor had shrunk more than predicted. Still miles to go, but the road no longer looked like a dead end. Summer waned. On the last night before 7th grade, Theo sat at his desk regarding the airplane. He had stopped asking it questions. Instead, he found himself writing messages to it, as if journaling on wings. Tonight, he unfolded fresh blue stationery from a drawer. He discovered the whole stack where the airplane once sat. Theo copied the exact folds, creasing careful as a cartographer making borders. When finished, he held twin planes, the original and his new hatchling. He set the first on his bookshelf, among soccer trophies and the Liberty nickel now framed. On the second, he wrote in permanent marker, "You're gonna get through middle school. Deep breath. Lead with kindness." Then he added the same curling T above his initials, surprised by how steady his hand felt. Theo opened the window. Night air smelled of cinnamon rolls from the bakery across Oak Street. He aimed the new plane upward and launched. It vanished into darkness, destination unknown. The old airplane perched on the shelf trembled once like a nod. Somewhere in a timeline yet to be lived, a younger version of Theodore Park would watch a blue paper airplane glide back toward him, words blooming across its wings, and think that magic had found him precisely when he needed it.